Welcome back to Copenhagen Blue. Do you have a Kia with a leaky valve cover gasket and some oil possibly down in the spark plug tubes, or do you need to change your spark plugs in general? Well, today I'm going to show you for about 25 bucks, a 10mm socket, some basic hand tools, and about an hour of your time, how you can do it yourself and save some money. Let's get started. Hey, if you haven't hit subscribe already, you might want to consider it. It helps me keep content like this coming. So thanks for taking the time to watch. Hopefully the video helps you. All right, the vehicle we're working on today is a 2008 Kia Rio. I believe it is a 1.8 liter motor. Today, we're just going to tackle our valve cover gasket. Now, on this vehicle, you do have three 10mm hex head bolts up there. Well, one of them is missing already. And I'd assume the reason that the one missing is because these people actually just ripped this off. I think they had a little bit of trouble getting it off with the previous owners, so they just decided, screw it. Well, I'm going to show you here with a 10mm and a little bit of effort. Oh wow, okay, that came out really easily. Oh, that came out easily too. Okay, so both of those came out easily. I'm guessing they tried to use an actual maybe Phillips head and it just wouldn't come out, but 10mm would have probably helped them when they were working on it. Looks like ignition coils. Now most every bolt on this is a 10mm that I've gone through. The ignition coils are held down by a 10mm. These are 10mm. The valve cover gasket itself is held down by a 10mm. So everything's 10mm, which means that you could do it with a simple hand tools. I'm just speeding it up by using an electric ratchet. We already took off our beauty cover. Now what we need to do is we need to get some of this stuff on top out of the way. Let's start with this harness up here. You have to be careful with the wiring. You don't want to have any problems with breaking wires or anything, but it does allow us to find the continuation of walnuts that we had. That was all over this vehicle. We're going to take out our other beauty nut here, bolt for the top cover. Now what we need to do is we're going to get a pair of pliers. We're going to undo this as well as this. We have, it looks like almost like a PCV line here that goes back into the intake pipe, and then we have another one that's maybe idle air control or something that creates vacuum. So let's take that off. With our pair of pliers, I'm going to use a needle nose here that's kind of long. We're going to squeeze and we'll kind of rock it back and forth until we can slide that off of where it is. I'm going to grab this spring clip here with our needle nose again, and we're going to slide that up and get that out of the way, which actually is pulling that tube up and out of the way, which is cool. We need to try and, all right, that one came off the back there as well for the valve cover, so we have both of those disconnected. We have our harness disconnected. Next we're going to take our ignition coils out. So we don't lose those, pull those bolts out and set them to the side somewhere perfectly safe. You can get these magnetic little trays over at Harbor Freight pretty cheap. Chances are these aren't just going to pull right out. They're going to be kind of stuck. So grab a flathead screwdriver or something along those lines that you can use for prying with, preferably a little pry tool, but you can just kind of go under the edge and just, there we go, lift up. Next thing you want to do is we're going to actually undo the connector here, which there's a little locking tab. As you can see, we just pull this back. Okay, it shouldn't come all the way out, I don't think. And then you want to push in, like you're plugging in the connector. Push in, push down on the locking tab, and pull back. Oh, there we go. Okay, so that came out. We're going to put our little locking tab right back in. All right, and we already loosened up that coil, so that's not all of our coil. There should be a boot at the end that we don't have, which means that that's somewhere down there. We should be looking at the top of our spark plug, and we're not. So I'm going to see if I can go down with my needle nose pliers here and just gently grab a hold, pull up on the rest of the boot. Oh boy, that's really on there. Well, let's play with this for a minute, see what we can do. So I'm trying to get down there with my needle nose pliers. I'm trying to get a hold of that boot and just pull up on it, but man, it does not have a whole lot of interest in coming up. But we're getting pieces of it. I don't know that that's really good, but you know, something's better than nothing. Obviously we know more parts that we need to order. All right, well, that was quite the fight to get that out. You can see how much it was chewed up, so definitely invest in a pair of needle nose pliers before you do that. And it was literally, I think, just stuck around the outside of the spark plug. So good news is there's no oil down there. There's only an ignition coil. But you might get lucky and your whole thing actually comes out like it's supposed to, looking like this. But obviously we need to get some new rubber insulators, which isn't a huge deal, or shouldn't be. With my luck, it probably is crazy, stupid expensive, or it's an entire coil. Who knows? We'll find out here in a little bit. But we're going to set our coil to the side, and we're going to keep working our way down. All right, well, that was an interesting one. You can see where it was stuck. It's actually stuck on the porcelain. So looking down in here, you can see there's the top of our spark plug. There's the porcelain of our spark plug, which means when I tried to kind of twist this to break it free, it broke off the top of the spark plug. Well, good thing we're putting new ones in. I'm going to keep moving forward here. We're going to unclip that connector. Pry it out. Oh, hey, this one actually lifts out nice and easy. Oh, you want to know why? Because it's soaked in oil. Remember what I was talking about with the leaky spark plug tubes? Well, this is what happens. It gets coated in oil. That means that whole tube is filled with oil down there. Although it made it easy for getting the coil out, which, you know, is nice.
Which is nice.
I'm gonna wipe that all off. Get all that oil off. And, oops. See, there's our isolator, so we'll have to get new ones of those. You can see how much of this stuff is coated in oil. That actually, you know, kills things like your fuel economy and everything else. So this is why this is important to take care of. And I think we got our coil, but yep, no isolator. Now this one also is leaking oil, but not as badly. Now I'm going to try and go down here again with my long nose pliers. I'm going to try and kind of twist around the spark plug itself. See if I can't get that rubber isolator to break free. Nope. Oh. Nope. We broke our spark plug again. Damn. It's 2 for 2, man.
This doorbell, that doorbell will give you a rash. Yes, I'm 2 for 2, man. If they don't...
All right. Well, while we're here, pardon my head, let me show you what we're looking at. All right. Looking down, there you can see our spark plug hole, and it is filled with oil on both of those. Not as badly on that one, but definitely you can see where the valve cover's been leaking around that hole. That's what it should look like, and that was the one that we wrestled with initially. But what we're going to do, I think, is we're going to leave the spark plugs the way they are now. I'm going to take off the valve cover, and then we'll do the spark plugs here at the end. Means we're going to continue moving forward. We're going to undo all of our 10mm bolts that are holding everything down. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 bolts holding down the valve cover. We're going to get all of those loosened up. Oh yeah, and don't forget the ones that are in the end of the timing cover here that go into the valve cover itself. So let's get those all taken out. Now there is a bolt, it looks like back here underneath this bracket that holds the valve cover down, and that one's a little tricky to get to. I obviously can't get to it right from the top, so I am going to depress this little pin here and pull that connector out, and we're going to put that to the side. And we're going to have to use a swivel socket with a extension. There we go, that came out not too bad. You stay there. No, hey, ooh. It is art. Anyway, that should take care of our valve cover. We're gonna have to break the seal a little bit here, but I'm just gonna make sure that I got all of my bolts and everything is free. We're just gently gently going to push up on the valve cover. See how all that broke that seal? Now we're not going to pry on the surface, hopefully, that the gasket sits on. We really don't want to mar that up. Easier. I'm just going to pull that up and out of the way to reveal our intake and our exhaust cam. Taking a look at our valve train here, actually it doesn't look bad. Now here's our valve cover gasket, and this thing is dry and brittle, which is why they tend to leak. They should be soft and pliable, and this thing, well, it's not. But it is kind of neat to see inside the engine here. This thing's actually not so bad for 160,000 miles. We've got our timing chain up there, which actually connects our two cams together. So this is a cam driven motor. You have a timing belt on it, which is something that we have to change out next, but it turns one cam and it turns that exhaust cam, which is linked up by a chain, to the intake cam. Looks like we have variable valve timing here, so we have actuator for the intake that actually causes it to turn, so you get a little more low end. But all in all, you know, it's not a bad looking little motor on the inside. So we'll get things cleaned up here. We need to scrape off all this material here, which it's important to make sure that you have a nice clean mating surface, but you don't want to use anything that could scratch it, mar it, or create an area that the oil can leak back out of. So we just want to gently clean all of this gunk off, and then we can start reassembly. Most of this is cleaning up pretty easily, actually, with just a paper towel, probably a little bit of brake cleaner, and we'll be in business to get all this aluminum cleaned up. Maybe a plastic razor blade, just so we don't mar the surface, but try and scrape off some of this gunk. You know, back here is going to be where it's a little bit tricky. And then I need to look at our new valve cover to see if our valve cover gasket, whether there was any RTV or anything that needed to be put in the corners, because sometimes that's the case. So we'll take a look at all that, but I'm going to get all this cleaned up and then I'll come back. Now that we have everything all cleaned up, and I don't know if you could see on the video, but there were a couple spots that you could see I had some RTV, some gasket maker that was applied over the bearing caps here for the cams on both sides, as well as there's some dummy plugs on each end of the cylinder head. Let's take a look at our gasket set real quick and see what we have. So we have a Felpro VS 50705R. I'm sure the R is for racing because that's what this car is. But we have our new gasket, which is nice and pliable, as you can see, very flexible. I'm not sure if you can see it or not, but this one is just getting kind of hard, brittle, cracking, and it's just junk at this point. You want your gaskets to be nice and pliable. We also do have some spark plug tube seals here, so we're going to put those in our valve cover as well as our new gasket. But let's get our valve cover cleaned up real quick. What we're looking at here is the underside of our valve cover. So we have it flipped upside down, and what we want to do is get these seals out. These seals are just pressed in, and that's what actually prevents the oil from leaking down inside these tubes here. But these, just like anything else, get really hard and brittle. I'm going to see if we can just kind of, well, there wasn't a whole lot of effort taken for that. As you saw, just kind of pulled on it and it broke. But that doesn't necessarily mean anything good, because it broke at the seal portion, not at the actual part that's stuck in there. That's going to take a little bit of work. Let me see if I can get one of these out. Let's see here if we can. We're going to just use a flathead screwdriver, and I'm just trying to gently pry and kind of twist. So I'm doing a little bit of a twisting motion, but you can't do too much pressure because otherwise the plastic could break. You want to go around and kind of evenly. There we go. So that one came out. Okay, well, there's our second one out. And there's our third one out. Just trying to go around evenly to try and distribute the force so it works its way out nicely. I'm going to Of course, our last one here, oh, there we go, is going to be the difficult one. There we go. And that came out as well. A little bit of paper towel. We want that sealing surface where those are going to press in to be nice and clean. We don't want a whole bunch of oil in there. That defeats the whole purpose of the gasket, right? You can use a little bit of brake cleaner if you want, something to help break down that oil and clean that up. Just makes things a little easier for cleanup. We have our new seals here. That rubber is actually nice and pliable, and these are in really, really good shape. So we're going to put these in. They just actually gently press right into that socket right there. So just like that, we have our new seals in. That's pretty good, ready to go. The only other thing we need to do is we need to clean up this channel where the gasket sits. Again, use a little bit of brake cleaner. You can get a little nylon brush. Just allows you to get into some of these crevices here and kind of go along these areas. Just make sure that it's clean. We're not looking for perfection. You know, really, anything you're going to do is going to be better than what you were dealing with as far as a leaking gasket. Now we can take our new gasket and we're going to kind of map it out. You can see if we flip it over here, the way that it goes on. Oh, well, that doesn't line up right, so let's try the other way, and that, my friend, looks really good. We're going to put that just over the holes, and you just kind of move along, make sure that it falls into the appropriate channel. It's a nice, easy gasket to put in, because that's a pretty decent looking gasket. Usually you want to do the corners right here where you have a cam. These sharp little corners, you'll put a little RTV. So they might have just put a line of it, you know, right here and then along here on the head itself to help seal things up.
Now, as you can see, we actually were only able to put about a pea-sized in the corner where the gasket meets, as well as over that dummy plug. My tube actually wasn't putting the gasket material out very well, so it's a little bit messy, but it should still serve the purpose. If you get yourself a new tube, you can cut it and actually put out the right amount. Now, as we have our valve cover here, we're going to flip it over. We have our gasket pressed inside, and we actually just need to make sure that our vacuum lines are facing the right way so it's oriented right. Lift up our harness, and we're just going to get it fit in here, and then we want to set it down so that way we don't disturb that RTV without, we only want to disturb that RTV one time. And gently we want to push down on that so that those spark plug seals go around the tubes, and you'll feel it drop into place. Now at this point, it's sitting down lightly, and we're going to put our bolts on, but we're not actually going to torque them down to spec, which is 60 inch-pounds. We just want to make it so that it's lightly pressing down, and that way it doesn't put too much force down on that gasket material.
We have our valve cover back on. We have all of our bolts that are tightened down just enough to kind of compress the gasket, but not fully snugged down. We are going to be going for a 60 inch-pound torque spec, which if you don't have a torque wrench, that's okay. You kind of go down until it just squats down a little bit. It's not a lot of pressure. We're just making it kind of tight. Once the bolts kind of stop, you just give a little turn, and you'll be good to go. But we have one makeshift bolt because I didn't realize we were actually missing one when I took everything apart. So thankfully I had a bolt with the same thread pitch, and with the help of a few washers, I was able to make that work. So we're going to be good to go. We just have to let this sit for an hour. And while we're doing that, let's actually pull out our spark plugs. We're going to use a spark plug socket. Now it's not going to grab onto the porcelain, so I'll probably end up having to use a pair of needle nose to go down there and grab it. But we're going to go down to the ones that have the oil in there first, only because we have to clean out the debris from all the rubber that's in here. We don't want that going down into our cylinders. So I'm going to go by hand here, and let's see if we can break these spark plugs free, which that one came free really easily. So we're going to undo that and take it all the way out and see how it looks. And like I expected, we didn't get the actual spark plug itself because the part that it actually grabs onto is the rubber, is the porcelain here with the rubber boot in the inside, and that's kind of gone. So we're going to have to use something, which will be those needle nose pliers that I've been utilizing, and we're going to reach down in there and grab that spark plug and pull that right on out. And that's actually probably a lot of the oil that was actually sitting down in that spark plug well itself, not something that was in the cylinder. As you can actually see on the plug itself, it's kind of a chocolate brown, so it's actually a pretty healthy plug. We've got a big gap there, so hopefully a new set of plugs will bring a little bit of life into this engine again. We can't really clean down that spark plug well, it's made that the oil's down there, so I'm actually going to put this in. We're going to, let's see, we have our old and our new. There's a little bit of a difference because this broke off because the people who put these in last time never put any dielectric grease or anything to stop that from seizing up, so that causes a problem. But our spark plug normally would go right in there and be held in, and then we can put this right down the middle. I'm just going to thread that in gently into the cylinder head. And it's pretty much, once it stops, then you do about a quarter turn and it's good to go. Now these are pre-gapped, so we don't actually have to gap these spark plugs, which is nice. And we should be off and running. Now my ratchet stops, and I'm just going to do about a quarter of a turn, not even. Second one down in the hole. Thread it in by hand, and there that stops. Here's our angle. Just gonna go till we're at about a quarter turn. It's finally arrived. We have a Beck and Arnley kit. In that kit, we have a new boot. We have like a rubber seal at the top, plus we have a new spring. So we're going to put those onto our coils so it looks like this, and we have the new boot on the bottom. We'll put our spring in, as well as we have the gasket piece at the top. We're going to put that in for all 4 coils. Now that we have all of our ignition coils in, we need to put on our first connector here first, because once we have the harness down, apparently you can't put that connector in. So we're going to put that connector in. We're going to get our stuff placed here. We can hook up all of our other connectors, and then we can screw this ignition coil back down, plug in our other coils, push in our locking tab, and then we're good to go there. Now we can put our harness back down, that everything's secured. Well, that's going to wrap up the video. We have new spark plugs in, we have new coil boots, we have a new valve cover gasket, and it was all about $35 to $45 and about an hour and a half of our time. Those coil boots did hang me up for a little bit, but if you found the video useful, hit that like button. Also, if you consider subscribing, I'd appreciate it. It helps keep content coming just like this, but I appreciate you taking time to watch. I'll see you next time.